Daniel Parker was a 22-year-old American student living in a small apartment near his university in Ohio. His life looked normal from the outside. He went to classes, met friends, worked a part-time job at a grocery store, and dreamed of becoming a graphic designer one day. But every night, when the world became quiet and the lights in his building went dark, Daniel stayed awake, glued to the screen of his phone that IT always started with just 5 minutes. 5 minutes on Instagram, 5 minutes on TikTok, 5 minutes checking notifications. But 5 minutes turned into 1 hour, then 2, and sometimes the whole night. Daniel didn't even notice it happening. He didn't think social media could be dangerous. Everyone used it. Everyone scrolled. Everyone liked, posted, and shared. He thought he was just living a normal modern life. But little by little, social media began to shape his days. That he woke up tired because he slept at 3 or 4 a.m. He rushed to class because he kept checking his phone every 5 minutes. That he stopped reading books, stopped going to the gym, and even stopped drawing, the thing he loved most. The worst part was the feeling he got every time he opened Instagram. He saw people traveling, smiling, buying new cars, wearing expensive clothes, and living perfect lives. Each picture made him feel a little smaller. Why is everybody ahead of me? He wondered. Why does my life feel so boring? One night, as Daniel scrolled through TikTok, he didn't realize 2 hours had passed. His neck hurt, his eyes burned, and his heart felt strangely heavy. But he still couldn't stop. A video ended. His thumb moved. Another video began. When he finally put his phone down, it was 4:12 a.m. He stared at the ceiling in the dark room and whispered to himself, "I think something's wrong with me." But he didn't know yet. This was only the beginning of how social media was destroying his life. The next morning, Daniel woke up to the sharp sound of his alarm. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, flashing bright notifications that almost hurt his sleepy eyes. He had slept barely 3 hours. His head felt heavy, like someone had filled it with sand. His body moved slowly, and his mind was foggy. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, trying to remember what day it was. Wednesday. A busy day. 2 classes, a shift at the grocery store, and a group project meeting. Daniel grabbed his phone again, out of habit, not desire. And within seconds, he was scrolling. Even though he knew he was late, he couldn't stop himself. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Suddenly, he looked at the time and jumped up, panic rushing through him. He was going to be late. Again. He ran to campus with a coffee in his hand, his backpack half zipped, and his heart pounding. When he walked into his first class, the professor paused and looked at him with the kind of expression teachers give when they're tired of repeating the same warning. "Daniel, this is the 3rd time this week," she said softly. Daniel nodded, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, won't happen again." But he knew it would. During the lecture, he tried to focus, but his phone buzzed in his pocket. His brain reacted automatically. Curiosity, excitement, the small reward of attention. He told himself, just one check. But one check turned into 10 minutes. He didn't hear a single sentence the professor said. By lunchtime, Daniel felt overwhelmed, stressed, and behind on everything. His friends noticed he seemed distant. He barely talked, and when he did, he spoke with tired eyes and half-finished thoughts. AT work later that evening, Daniel made mistakes. He gave the wrong change to a customer. He forgot to scan items. His manager pulled him aside. "Daniel, you okay? You seem distracted lately." Daniel forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But the truth was deeper. He wasn't just tired. His attention span was shrinking. His motivation was fading. His confidence was falling. He couldn't stay focused on anything. Not school, not work, not even himself. When he got home that night, he tried to study, but he couldn't concentrate. His phone sat next to him like a magnet. He didn't want to pick it up, but he also couldn't ignore it. He opened Instagram again. More perfect people, more perfect lives, more reasons to feel like he wasn't enough. Hours passed without him noticing. And as the clock hit 2:37 a.m., Daniel realized something painful. Social media wasn't just a distraction anymore. That IT was controlling him. He didn't know how to stop. And he didn't know where this was leading, but the damage had already begun. The real crash began slowly. So slowly that Daniel didn't even realize something serious was happening. That IT started with missed assignments. One Thursday afternoon, Daniel's professor handed back a graded project. When he flipped the paper over, he felt a sharp shock run through his chest. Laughing face, plus he had never gotten a grade that low before. not even in high school. The project was messy, unfinished, rushed, because he had spent the night before scrolling instead of working. His professor looked at him with concern. Daniel, this isn't like you. What's going on? He opened his mouth to explain, but no words came. What could he say? Sorry, I was up all night watching TikTok. He just nodded and walked out of the classroom, feeling a tightness in his chest. Losing friends without noticing. Daniel's friends also started noticing the change. At lunch, he would sit with them but barely talk. His phone was always in his hand. When someone joked, he didn't laugh. When someone told a story, he wasn't listening. One day, his friend Mark finally spoke up. Dude, are you okay? You're here, but you're not really here. Daniel forced a smile. I'm fine, just tired. But his friends weren't convinced. He didn't go out with them anymore. He canceled plans. He stayed in his room scrolling late into the night, comparing his life to hundreds of strangers. His world was getting smaller, but his screen was getting bigger. The turning point. One evening, after a long day, Daniel sat on his bed, scrolling through Instagram. He saw a guy his age, traveling in Europe, posting pictures in expensive clothes, eating at restaurants Daniel could never afford. The caption read, "Living my best life." Daniel felt something dark and heavy rise inside him. Jealousy, frustration, and loneliness all mixed together. He whispered to himself, why can't I be like that? What's wrong with me? For the first time, he felt something close to depression. Not sadness, not stress, but a deep, painful emptiness that he didn't want to admit it. But social media was stealing more than just time. It was stealing his self-worth. The breakdown. One night, around 3:30 a.m., Daniel closed his apps and stared at the black screen of his phone. His reflection looked tired, pale, and defeated. His room was a mess. His homework was undone. His relationships were fading. His dreams were slipping away. He felt tears collecting in his eyes, something that rarely happened. And then he said something out loud in his tiny apartment. I'm losing control of my own life. It was the first honest thing he had said to himself in months. The scary part, he still didn't know how to quit, but everything was about to change. The breaking point came on a cold Friday morning in November. Daniel woke up late again, 2 hours late. His eyes were burning, his head hurt, and he felt that same heavy fog in his mind. He hadn't heard his alarm because he had fallen asleep with his phone still in his hand at almost 5 a.m. When he checked the time, panic exploded inside him. He had a quiz that morning. A quiz worth 15% of his final grade. He threw on a hoodie, grabbed his backpack, and ran out the door without even brushing his teeth. The winter air hit his face like ice as he sprinted toward campus, his heart racing with fear. When he reached the classroom door and tried to walk in, the professor stopped him. Daniel, the quiz is over. His stomach dropped. I'm sorry, he tried to say. The professor shook her head gently. You can't keep doing this. I'm worried about you. But Daniel wasn't listening anymore. He felt something break inside him. Something small, something important. He walked out of the building and sat on a bench outside. The sky was gray, the wind was sharp, and he felt more alone than ever before. A message that hurt as he sat there. His phone buzzed. Out of habit, he checked it immediately. It was a message from Mark, his best friend. Mark, bro, are you coming tonight? We haven't seen you in weeks. Daniel stared at the screen. For some reason, the message made him angry, not at Mark, but at himself. He typed a reply, deleted it, typed again, deleted it again. He finally wrote, Daniel, I'm busy. A lie. He wasn't busy. He wasn't tired. He wasn't sick. He was drowning. And no one knew. The conversation that changed everything that evening. When Daniel came home from work, his phone died. He plugged it in, but for the first time in months, he didn't pick it up immediately. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the wall. After a long moment, he whispered, I can't live like this anymore. Suddenly, the door knocked. It was his neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, a kind older woman who lived across the hallway. She usually saw Daniel rushing around, phone in hand, half asleep. Tonight, she looked at him carefully. You look tired, dear. Are you taking care of yourself? Daniel wanted to say yes, but the truth came out instead. I think I'm addicted to my phone. She didn't laugh. She didn't judge. She just nodded kindly. Honey, you're not the only one. But the first step is admitting it. The second is taking control back. Her words hit him like a quiet explosion. Simple, but powerful. taking control back. Could he really do that? The moment of realization later that night. Daniel sat alone in his room and opened the screen time section on his phone. When he saw the number, he felt sick. 10 hours and 47 minutes to in one day that he stared at the number again, hoping it was wrong, but it wasn't. That was almost half of his waking life. Half of his day gone, stolen, wasted. He felt his throat tighten. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't stupid. He wasn't weak. He was addicted. And addictions don't disappear on their own. He put the phone down slowly and said something he had never said before. Tomorrow, I start to change. He didn't know how yet. He didn't know if he could do it. But he knew he had to try. This was the beginning of Daniel's fight to take his life back. The next morning, Daniel woke up before his alarm. Not because he slept early, but because he couldn't stop thinking about the number he saw last night. 10 hours and 47 minutes. It felt like a punch in the stomach. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his phone, wondering how something so small could take such a big part of his life. He looked around his messy room. Clothes on the floor, half-finished assignments on the desk, empty coffee cups everywhere. His life felt like his room, disorganized, chaotic, and out of control. But today, he was determined to change something. White medium star step 1. The box. Daniel found an old shoebox in his closet. He placed it on his nightstand and whispered to himself, "This is where my phone stays for the first hour of the day." He turned off the alarm, put the phone into the box, closed it, and stepped away. It felt strange, uncomfortable, almost painful. He kept reaching for his pocket, forgetting the phone wasn't there. His hands felt empty, like they were waiting for something to hold. But as the minutes passed, something unusual happened. His mind started to clear. He made his bed, washed his face, ate breakfast without staring at a screen. And for the first time in months, he left his apartment without rushing. It was only 1 hour, but it felt like a small victory. White medium star step 2. The realization at class. Daniel noticed something he had forgotten. The world was bigger than his screen. People were talking, laughing, sharing real moments. He listened more, participated more, and even answered a question correctly, something he hadn't done in weeks. His professor gave him a warm nod. It felt good, really good. During lunch, instead of scrolling, he watched the world around him. The sound of students chatting, the autumn leaves falling across campus, the warmth of his coffee cup in his hands. He felt alive again. White medium star step 3. The slip but addiction doesn't disappear in one day. That evening, when he got home from work, Daniel felt tired and stressed. He sat on his bed and thought, just a few minutes on TikTok. I deserve a break. He scrolled and scrolled and scrolled. An hour passed. Then 2. When he finally looked up, it was almost midnight. His chest tightened with frustration. Why did I do this again? He whispered in anger. Why can't I stop? For a moment, he felt hopeless, like he had failed. White medium star step 4. The important lesson. But then, he remembered something his neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, once said. No one breaks a habit in a single day. You fall, you get up, and you keep going. Daniel took a deep breath. He didn't throw the phone away. He didn't delete the apps. He didn't hate himself. He simply said, tomorrow, I try again. Because real change isn't perfect, that it's messy, slow, full of mistakes, but every step still counts. The next morning, Daniel woke up feeling different. Not perfect, not fully healed, but determined. The slip from last night was still on his mind, but instead of giving up, he decided to learn from it. He opened the shoebox, turned off his alarm, and placed the phone right back inside. This time, it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like taking control. He whispered, 1 hour. I can do 1 hour. White medium star new mornings, new mind. Daniel made breakfast again, eggs and toast, and sat by the small window in his apartment. The early sunlight warmed his face. It was peaceful, simple, and real. He noticed something interesting. When he wasn't checking his phone, he actually had time. Time to breathe, time to think, time to exist without rushing. He even arrived early to class, something he hadn't done in months. His professor raised her eyebrows in surprise. Good to see you on time, Daniel, she said. He smiled. Good to be here. And he meant it. White medium star. The return of old passions. Back in his apartment that afternoon, Daniel looked at his messy desk. There were pencils, markers, sketchbooks, things he hadn't touched in almost a year. He picked up a pencil. At first, his hand shook. He wasn't sure if he remembered how to draw anymore. But slowly, carefully, he began sketching. Lines turned into shapes. Shapes turned into forms. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a spark inside him. Drawing wasn't about impressing anyone. It wasn't about likes, comments, or followers. It was just his moment, his silence, his peace. When he finished the sketch, it wasn't perfect. But it made him smile. He realized something important. Social media had taken his passion away, and now he was taking it back. White medium star, the second slip. But again, evenings were the hardest. That night, after dinner, Daniel felt stressed about schoolwork. His mind felt tired, and he could hear his phone buzzing with notifications. That he told himself, just 5 minutes. 5 minutes turned into 30.30, turned into 90. When he checked the time, he felt that old familiar frustration. Not again, he muttered. He dropped the phone onto his bed and covered his face with both hands. It felt like he was fighting two versions of himself, the one who wanted peace and the one who wanted quick dopamine hits. For a moment, he felt defeated. But then something new happened. That he didn't scroll again, that he didn't keep going. Instead, he placed the phone back in the shoebox and shut the lid firmly. That was progress, not a small, meaningful victory. White medium star learning to forgive himself. Later that night, lying in bed, Daniel stared at the ceiling. But instead of feeling hopeless, he felt human. Change wasn't a straight line. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fast. But every day he tried, he felt a little stronger. He whispered to himself, I'm getting better, one day at a time. And for the first night in months, he fell asleep without scrolling, without noise, without comparing himself to strangers. Just silence, just peace, just Daniel. Daniel's progress wasn't perfect, but something inside him was slowly changing. He woke up earlier, he checked his phone less, that he started drawing again. He began feeling like himself. But addiction never disappears without a fight. And soon, the real battle began. White medium star, the weekend crash. Saturday arrived. A day with no classes, no work, no structure. A day that used to be his favorite. Daniel woke up, stretched, and thought, I have the whole day free. I should do something productive. But the moment he reached the living room, he saw his phone charging on the table. Notifications were glowing on the screen. Instagram, 12 TikTok, 7 Snapchat, 5 messages, 3. His heart thumped. His fingers twitched. It felt like the apps were calling his name. That he told himself, just a quick check. And then it happened. 1 hour. Then 2, then 4. It was the worst slip since he started trying to change. White medium star, the shame that follows. By evening, Daniel felt horrible. His head hurt. His eyes were dry. His mind was foggy again. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't drawn. He hadn't cleaned or gone outside. The same old crushing guilt came back. Why can't I stop? What's wrong with me? Why do I keep ruining everything? He punched the pillow in frustration. His eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from exhaustion, anger, and disappointment in himself. It was like being pulled back into a dark place he thought he'd already escaped. White medium star, a call that saved him just then. His phone rang. It was Mark. He thought about ignoring it, but something told him to answer. Hey man, Mark said. His voice was warm, calm. We're grabbing food. Want to come? Daniel hesitated. He wanted to say no. He wanted to hide. He wanted to stay alone with his guilt. But then he heard himself say, Yeah, I'll come. When he met his friends, they immediately noticed something was off. You okay, dude? Mark asked. Daniel took a deep breath. I think. I'm addicted to my phone, he admitted quietly. His friends didn't laugh. They didn't tease him. They didn't judge him. Mark put a hand on his shoulder. Bro, all of us struggle with that. You're not alone. Those words hit Daniel deep inside. For the first time, he realized he wasn't fighting this battle alone. Millions of people were fighting it. People he knew. People everywhere. And saying it out loud made the problem feel less powerful. White medium star, a new promise. When Daniel got home that night, he didn't feel defeated anymore. He felt supported. He felt understood. He sat on his bed, looked at the shoebox, and whispered, I'm not giving up. Not this time. He took a sheet of paper and wrote something on it. Small steps. Every day. No perfection. He taped it above his desk. It was a reminder that change wasn't about never failing. It was about always coming back. White medium star, the slow build of strength before going to sleep. Daniel didn't scroll. He didn't check notifications. He didn't compare himself to anyone. He placed his phone in the shoebox, turned off the light, and lay down with a quiet mind. For the first time in years, he felt proud of himself, not because he was perfect, but because he was fighting, and he knew. Tomorrow, he would try again, and the day after, and every day until he was free. The next week became one of the most important weeks of Daniel's life, not because everything suddenly became easy, but because he finally started building habits that actually worked. At IT was the week he stopped fighting alone and started fighting with a plan. White Medium Star, a new rule: no phone until noon on Monday morning. Daniel stood in his kitchen holding a cup of coffee. He looked at the shoebox and said out loud, "Today, the phone stays inside until noon." It sounded impossible. It sounded crazy. It sounded like something only strong people could do. But Daniel wanted to try. He dropped the phone into the box and closed it first. The silence felt wrong. His fingers felt restless. His mind wanted the quick hit of excitement. His eyes kept looking toward the box like it was a door he was not allowed to open. But as the hours passed, something incredible happened. He finished an entire assignment. He cleaned his room. He cooked a real breakfast. He even read a few pages of a book he had abandoned months ago. By the time noon arrived, Daniel felt light, clear, alive. He opened the box, picked up his phone, and expected a mountain of notifications. There weren't many. He laughed softly. "So this is what I've been losing my life over." White Medium Star getting stronger each day. On Tuesday, he kept the rule again. On Wednesday, 2. By Thursday, it wasn't torture anymore. It was routine. His mornings became productive. His mind became calmer. His focus slowly returned. People noticed the change. His professor smiled and said, "You seem more present lately." His manager at work said, "Great job today, Daniel." Even the bags under his eyes began to fade. He was rebuilding his life. Quietly, steadily, patiently. White Medium Star rediscovering the real world. That weekend, instead of staying home, Daniel went for a walk around campus. The air was crisp, the trees were bare, and the sky was a soft winter blue. He saw things he had forgotten to appreciate. The sound of students laughing, the rhythm of leaves blowing in the wind, the smell of fresh coffee from the cafe across the street, the simple beauty of a world that didn't need filters to look real. He sat on a bench and watched the world instead of watching a screen. For the first time in months, he felt connected, not to apps, but to the world around him. White Medium Star, a new fear. What if he goes back? That night, Daniel lay in bed thinking about his progress, but a small fear grew in his chest. What if I fall back again? What if I lose control one day? He knew addiction wasn't gone. It was waiting for a weak moment to return. But he also knew something else. For the first time, he wasn't afraid to fight. He had tools, he had support, he had hope. He whispered into the dark, "I'm stronger than the algorithm." White Medium Star, a message that sparked hope. The next morning, Daniel woke up to a single notification. It was from Mark. "Mark, proud of you. Bro, whatever you're doing, keep going. You look happier these days." Daniel smiled. Maybe he wasn't perfect. Maybe he would slip again. Maybe the battle wasn't over. But one thing was finally clear. He was winning more often than he was losing, and that was enough. Months passed since Daniel first admitted he had a problem. The early days were messy, frustrating, and full of small failures. But now, something remarkable had begun. Daniel was changing. White Medium Star, new habits, new life. Daniel's mornings no longer started with a phone in his hand. Instead, he made his bed, ate breakfast, and spent time sketching or reading. Evenings were no longer dominated by endless scrolling. That he used his phone intentionally, texting friends, checking schedules, or reading something useful. That he discovered that life felt fuller without constant notifications. That he could focus in class. That he remembered assignments. He even helped classmates who were struggling, something he hadn't done before. White Medium Star, reconnecting with friends. Daniel noticed something else. His friendships were returning. That he met Mark and their friends regularly. He laughed, he talked. He felt present again. That IT wasn't just social media. He was escaping. It was the loneliness it had created. Why putting down the phone, he reconnected with real people. One day, Mark said, "Daniel, you seem like the old you again, maybe even better." Daniel smiled. "I think I'm finally learning who I really am." White Medium Star, learning self-control. Daniel realized something important about social media. It wasn't evil. It wasn't the problem. It was how he used it. He learned rules for himself. No phone in bed. No scrolling first thing in the morning. Limit social media to 30 to 60 minutes a day. Use apps that help him grow. Not compare.it was not punishment.it was self-respect.it was freedom. White medium star rediscovering passions most importantly. Daniel rediscovered what made him happy. He sketched for hours, lost in creativity that he started a small art project. He even shared his work with classmates and received real, meaningful feedback. Not likes, not comments, but honest appreciation. Social media became a tool, not a master. He felt alive, focused, free. White medium star a lesson learned one evening. Daniel sat on his balcony. Looking at the city lights, he thought about the months he had wasted, the stress, the sleepless nights, the lost time that he whispered to himself. Social media didn't destroy me. I almost let it, but I fought back, and I'm stronger now. For the first time, he didn't feel regret, he felt pride. He had turned his life around. One small step, one day at a time. Daniel sat at his desk, sketchbook open, the winter sunlight streaming through the window that he smiled at the pencil in his hand. The simple act of drawing now felt like freedom. Freedom he had almost lost. It had been months since he had started his journey to quit social media. Or, more accurately, to take control of it. White medium star reflecting on the journey. Daniel thought about how it all began. Waking up tired and late. Feeling stressed, distracted, and overwhelmed. Losing focus on school, work, and even friendships. Falling into comparison, jealousy, and self-doubt. It had been painful. It had been scary. But he had survived. He realized that the first step, admitting he had a problem, was also the hardest. From there, he built small habits. Mornings without his phone, limiting scrolling to short, intentional periods, rediscovering passions, reconnecting with friends, forgiving himself for slips. Every tiny step had added up. And now, he could finally breathe. White medium star living intentionally. Daniel's phone was no longer a master. It was a tool that he used it for school, messages, and inspiration. But nothing more. That he no longer felt anxious about missing out. That he no longer compared his life to strangers on a screen. He no longer allowed dopamine hits from likes and notifications to control his mood. Instead, he controlled his life. White medium star sharing the lesson one day. Daniel spoke to a group of students about his experience. Social media is not the enemy, he told them. The danger is letting it control you, taking your time, your energy, and your peace. He shared the steps that helped him. Admit the problem. Take small, daily actions to regain control. Rediscover what truly makes you happy. Reconnect with real people. Forgive yourself for setbacks. Change takes time. The students listened quietly, some nodding, some taking notes. Daniel smiled. He knew someone in that room might change their life today, just like he had. White medium star the new Daniel months later. Daniel looked back at his old habits with gratitude, not regret. He had learned how to focus on what matters, enjoy life without constant digital distractions, build real relationships, take care of his mental health, live intentionally. Social media was no longer a thief of his time. It was a choice he made consciously, carefully, and wisely. He whispered to himself as he picked up his pencil. I'm free. And this is just the beginning. White heavy checkmark. The moral of the story: social media can control your life if you let it. Small, consistent changes are more powerful than extreme measures. That self-awareness, discipline, and patience are key. True happiness comes from real connections, passions, and presence in the moment. That Daniel's story shows that freedom is possible, one day at a time.